Good morning, those who are watching UBC now from wherever you are at whichever platform that you are using to see us on UBC. Apparently, Kampala this morning is beautiful. It's not as rainy as it was anticipated, but of course, Kampala rain is funny. You could be in one area which is very dry, and the next you cross the next LC and you have rain there. Otherwise, the weather is very beautiful, and we welcome you to this program of Pan-African Friday, where we look at issues affecting the continent of Africa, the people of Africa, those living in Africa and outside of Africa. My name is James Mututa, and I'm joined in the studio by the usual panelists, and I'll be bringing them to you at an appropriate time. Today, we're looking at a number of issues, and most of the issues that will be concentrating on today is the dwindling influence of France, if any, in the Sahel area, where we have a number of countries now deciding to cut links with the government and the people of France in terms of diplomatic and bilateral relations. We'll also be looking at other places of Africa where France and many other countries have had influence, and we see what is happening. Is that Africa, is it that African countries in these places are rediscovering themselves? Are African countries getting more focused, more sensitive, or is France losing the influence in Africa? Is it that it is no longer able to provide what it promised, or what is then happening in these countries where we have, and most of these have been former colonies of the French economies. In the studio, I'm joined by the usual panelists, Sister Rachel Takali, and also Ndugu Irumba. Apparently, Ndugu Rugarama will be joining us maybe later if possible, but he has an emergency that is attending to. As usual, lady and gentlemen, welcome to the program. And as our norm, actually, we begin with looking at issues that have happened on this continent of Africa in the past week. Before I go to you people, this time I'll also start with myself, lest I forget. I was very happy. 2 events, actually, I participated in, I think one. Yesterday, we had the East African cycling safari, something like that. That ended yesterday. And this East African cycling group brought together a number of young men from the countries of East Africa who have been cycling bicycles across the entire East African region, 50 days. I know people can do cycling. I personally have tried to do cycling, but you are talking about cycling for 50 days. And we had an amazing experience when these young men and women were talking to us about the experience, how they have been in places where, because the theme is also comes with food security and environment. And they are telling you they are passing in places where there is no tree. They are passing in places where there is, you ride miles on the end with no water, and also passing in places where there are no toilets. So that means a lot to the East African community, the leadership of East African community, to the people of East African community. And one time we were on a program and we said, it seems like the people in East Africa are moving faster and further than the leadership of East Africa. In other words, people seem to be more integrated than the governments of East Africa. And that is positive in that people-to-people relations build more strong synergies, more ties, stronger ties than governments. Because you remember, even when the East African community politically collapsed down, the people continued to relate, and people continued to work like because you have a brother, you have a sister, you have a relative, you have a friend, and then that interaction continues. So that was one of the things that yesterday we witnessed, and it was a nice function. We had the ambassadors of East Africa in this particular place, and we had these young men who have been riding all this time. You could even smell them from a distance away, but it was that fun. And the other thing, talking about sports now, I wish Ndugu Garama was here, because he's the one who likes sports so much. The issue of AFCON, I think something to celebrate too. Not that we my celebration comes in a way that not that we are going to have these games here and people are going to have fun and enjoy, because we could enjoy them even wherever they are played. But now, what comes to my mind is the togetherness with which the leaders of East Africa, both in the political but in the sports world, came together to lobby. And that also communicates to us that no African government, no African country can stand alone. Because I'm sure if Kenya lobbied alone, would have lost. If Uganda lobbied alone, would have lost. And if Tanzania did so alone, would have lost. But that we came together as a bloc, we were able to achieve this. So this should communicate to us, the people of Africa, that we need to work together. Because if we cannot work together on anything, then we are not going to solve any problem of anything. That was my week at a glance. Rachel, you also want to hear from yours.
I think for me, I'd like to start further afield than the African continent. And two instances come to mind. There's been the situation, of course, with the Ukraine war. But I think for me, what is interesting, there was a missile attack on Friday on the Black Sea headquarters, the Black Sea Fleet, the Russian fleet in Crimea. And shortly thereafter, the Ukrainian government announced that the top general in that operation, the Russian General Sokolov, had been killed in that strike.
Which is rare for Ukraine. They rarely
admit. But what is troubling about this one is that Russia has been providing video upon video showing that Sokolov is actually still alive. But that aside...
I'll not be surprised, because we never know someone who was killed is still alive. I've heard those stories. Yeah, but
that aside, yeah. In North America, there's been heightened political activity. They're positioning themselves for the presidential contest next year, end of next year. And at this time, Mr. Trump has just lost his case where he was trying to delay being tried in the state of New York for fraud.
One of those cases he has lost anyway.
The state of New York claims this gentleman and his empire have been overestimating the size of his net worth.
Sure. And
the actual substance of that organization to actually gain concessional terms on the loan of France and other gains that come by having a gigantic net worth. But the Republicans are also not asleep. They have also kick-started efforts to impeach Mr. Biden. There are many people who say it is untenable, it will not work, but I think they're determined to get the spotlight off their leading candidate, Mr. Trump, who is besieged on every side by these court cases and threatened court cases. So I think that shows us that this business of politics is not just dirty around here. It is dirty in Ukraine, and it is dirty also in New York. For me, those are some of the more interesting developments.
But again, when you look at it, these people who give us these long lectures about democracy, about a lot of things that themselves seem not to understand and appreciate. I don't know, but I think, I believe that the Republicans have issues, because I don't see the need of hanging around this guy who seem to have no regard for anyone, including even the Democrats, the Republicans themselves anyway, because he has been abusing them left, right, and center. But at the same time, I think they needed some sober person to lead them, because this high-handedness of politics, it will not be helping them. And they need a candidate who they will be able to sell and then will be bought across the aisle. But if you have a man who already has a number of cases to almost in every state to sort, and maybe the only remedy he would happen if he happens to just win the election and becomes a president, maybe that will be okay. But if that does not happen and he remains a person outside the presidency, I think the Republicans still have many problems to sort out. So I thought they would use this time to clean up their house. Apparently it's not taking that time easy. Maybe I hope they will be able to see the sense in what they're doing and organize themselves. Other than that, I don't see them. Of course, they could try to impeach the president. It will not be possible. It will be the
drag on.
Exactly, the usual gymnastics. Who has the majority in the Senate and who controls the House? And of course, we saw that happen quite a lot. The right person to have been impeached, I think, would have been actually Trump, if people looked at America as great as they used to say. But that did not happen. I don't see this also happening. But like you said, politics is apparently becoming dirty, beginning from elsewhere, not only here. Ndugu Irumba, your week.
Thank you so much, Comrade Mututa. My week has been, I may say, I was entangled in so many Pan-African related activities, but if I went there, we would spend the whole hour now. I would like to run to actually comment on some of your opening remarks on the fact that the EAC citizenry looks to be moving faster to the integration than the political class.
Yes.
That is what I would like actually to maybe comment as my best scenario so far. Comrade Mututa, this is true. Why? The political class benefits from the divisions, and yet the led, the citizenry, the people of East Africa, benefit more when they are together.
Yeah.
Their goods and services can move faster. So it is the people now, the led, that are going to lead the leaders. I don't know whether that makes sense. The politicians are going to come behind the people, not the other way around. Because when people are united, the politicians feel their powers are being trimmed off. So it is very correct when you say people seem to be faster to the integration intentions for all purposes than the people, because also the primary agenda of these integrations is finally the political integration. Now, Mututa, I want you to tell me that in the political integration, who is going to process this faster in the East African community? Because when you integrate, that would mean that you need probably one parliament, you need one president, you need, so that would be a bit difficult. You can see people are still, digging deeper for their holes to entrench their power. I think you are aware the other day, Comrade Pan-African from the other side, Paul Kagame, announced his bid again. Yes, now tell
boldly.
me. So now tell me that would fast track the EAC community.
Yeah, because when you look at the EAC, the foundations on which were built now about 20 years ago, you are looking at the common market, you are looking at the common custom, you are looking at the common currency, and eventually the common
the
the
political
political
integration.
leadership.
The political
Yes.
integration.
Now,
Now, that's what is delaying the process, because everybody says,
we can fast track.
yeah, these ones, now, these other ones, they're also delaying their implementation, because if you do it fast, then the other ultimate one will come next. So you'd rather delay on these ones, so that they buy time. So my message has been, throughout this week, you asked me, let the people themselves, I'm here, here I've been actually driving the people of Africa, not just East Africa. My engagements have been on the African continent. We have engagements, and we have created WhatsApp groups, and I'm moving up and down every other day. Has been, let us mobilize the people of Africa. We, the led, let us mobilize, not the politicians, because the politicians will not allow you to actualize your dreams. Let us mobilize behind them, they will follow. Because the politicians always will go with the masses, where the majority are. Even if he doesn't agree with the idea, but the moment he sees that the majority are with that, they will come. So let us mobilize. I was telling people, we had a conference this week on the African continent, but we had 54 country codes. This is one country, Africa is one country, but we had 54 country codes on the Zoom talking, but some of the people dropping off because of network, because of airtime. If we had one country code, America has one country code, UK has one country code, UAE has one country code, India, 1.3 billion people, has one country code, China has one country code. Look at Africa, 54 country codes. What are you doing? They make the communication so difficult for you, because they know when you have communication, you will integrate, you will think together. So they have to make it even difficult from the point of communication. If I want to communicate to Mututa, who is in Tanzania, I must spend more money. And amidst our communication, it must break down. Then you must resort now to an email which will take a month to respond. That kind of stuff. When I want to travel from Uganda to some other part of Africa, I must first report to Europe. You connect. That they are the ones who are connecting you. They are the ones connecting you. You are moving from one part of Africa to another, but Europe is the one connecting you. Do you think it is difficult for a plane to right away come from Uganda and drop in another country of Africa? It's not difficult. But they have to make it difficult.
But I think, yeah, I agree with you on that, because even last time when we were here with the bishop, Mabonga was talking about the same. But you know, sometimes me, when I step back to think, and I'm looking at, while all this is happening, are Africans ourselves doing something? Because, for example, again, and yesterday we were talking about it, why can't we, okay, beginning with even the East African Customs Union, you find people are still stuck on certain things.
Small things.
Yes, small things that if you are crossing from Uganda to Kenya, you have to pay for this one. You have to pay this one. This may be exempted, this one.
The taxes are different.
Exactly. The regimes, the taxing regimes seem to be different. The last time I told you when I was going to Tanzania, because and next time when we were talking about it, when we took it about someone to talk to us about it, that you can use your national ID to travel across the East African region.
Yeah.
But we were told that when you are coming to Tanzania, you must have your passport.
So now those are some of the, and the implementation process should be seamless. I went to Kenya, I didn't need a passport. You only present your national ID. If you don't have a national ID, the other alternative is passport, of course. But it's no longer a requirement for you to travel with a passport going to Kenya. But Tanzania, you still need a passport. Now, we are in the same ESC, we are in the same region, we are in the same village called East Africa. All of us sit in the same meetings, conferences, where decisions are taken. Why is the implementation taking different timelines? That in Kenya, it is okay, in Tanzania, it's not okay. But we were in the same meeting.
Yes.
We made the same resolutions. So, Who is leading that? The politicians,
Yeah, because the other
the
thing,
leaders.
the other time we were moving in, coming from Finland, cruise to Sweden, you get off the ship, you walk in Sweden, and then you, in the evening, you can walk down to Copenhagen and have a cup of tea. And you can walk back in Sweden, or you can travel back to Finland within that Schengen area, of course. And no one is going to disturb you with a passport, with a visa, because it is assumed you already have entered that region.
EU.
Yes. Now, in East Africa, for example, later on East Africa, let's talk about Africa. You cross one border to the next, you have to have all those requirements. And then you, other than that, you also have to tell them why you are there. Now, this, on the outside of it, you could think we are being sensitive maybe on security matters and other issues, but look at the losses that we incur. Because if a person comes on one visa, can visit Uganda, can go to Rwanda, can go to Kenya, there is that multiplicity. Even whenever we go, you are leaving their money anyway. But you know, we are now used to this small car protection. No wonder we have been having, and again, I'm referring to yesterday a lot because we had a very good discussion with ambassadors from this region. And I was saying the other time, Uganda, I mean, there's no way Kenya is going to have enough food without getting food from Uganda. At least that's a fact. And the other day, the food was being stopped because claims of aflatoxin, the milk, whatever had, the eggs had what, some of them are bigger than others. And you are asking, even as Ugandans, we also need to have safe food. We don't want also to eat aflatoxins. So if we are moving in this East African region, can't we have issues of standards? Can't we standardize? You say, now the food and security, I mean the food security, the food safety, let's have one agency. When it comes to issues of drugs and medicines, let's have one agency that we can move faster and have our people safer. But the problem is, there is an invisible hand, like normally Rachel here says, but can't we hit this invisible hand for once and we settle? Where is the problem, Rachel?
The problem is very clear. We have not begun to understand how important unity of mind is.
Sure.
America waged a long and bloody civil war to ensure that the whole entity, that is the country America, remains on the same page. We, on the other hand, have been waging long and costly civil wars to ensure that we stay apart. When entities are invested in instability, you cannot hope to see progress. The people of the Confederate South were saying, look, our way of doing things is different. You in the northern part of America can continue. You don't understand the value of keeping the black man enslaved and the value of keeping labor costs low. You can continue with the way you have envisioned that you should be. Let us be. And the visionary leaders of the day insisted, come hell or high water, they would have the same way of doing things. Ndugu Irumba here has talked about the fact that we have 54 different entities on the African continent.
Sure.
That in itself is not the problem. America has 50 different countries, but 50 different countries that have agreed on a common way forward. That is the difference. Even the 54 different entities in Africa can agree on a common destiny and actually do what it takes. And that is also what Ndugu Irumba was talking about. Why do we have to have these meetings? There's the top governing body of the East African community. They meet every now and then. But there has been lack of progress in some arenas because clearly many of these stakeholders show up there to fill the space that which space says Tanzania, which space says DRC, which space says South Sudan. But it is also clear that the people that they lead, well, maybe it is these individuals who are presidents and other leaders who are not heeding the cries of their own people. As a result, the things that are agreed upon look very good, but implementation has become elusive. The long and the short is that we have failed to learn from where we have been until now. The East African community is one of the oldest customs unions anywhere.
Sure.
As far back as 1927, the British colonialists started the first customs union, which dwindled until it came to its end in about 1967. So in 1967, they reinvented a new arrangement, very much with the old hallmarks, to lead them into a new era that saw the coming to life of the East African community, which again collapsed in 77. And it was revived again in 93 to see fruition of the current arrangement in 2000. What I'm trying to say is that we have learned nothing from what caused those previous collapses. The issues that challenged us then are still very much with us.
Sure.
Among them is the fact that ideological symmetry was elusive. When they began the walk to the present arrangement, we had Kenya, we had Tanzania, and we had Uganda. At the helm was Dr. Obote, there was Ndugu Nyerere, and then there was, of course, the late Kenyatta. But as the years rolled by, there was a divergence of ideology. There was a divergence of national interests.
Yeah, exactly.
Tanzania went down the road of socialism. Dr. Obote was sympathetic to those views. Kenya went down the path that talked about capitalism all the way. So they leaned even closer to Western powers. Tanzania in particular leaned very close to China. Dr. Obote did not go the full distance, but he was sympathetic to some of these virtues that are espoused by the socialists. In 71, a crisis came in the first East African formation. At that time, I don't know whether he was general, I don't know what rank was, but Idi Amin overthrew Dr. Obote. And Ndugu Nyerere in particular did not take kindly to this situation. He was famously very much at variance with the personality of Idi Amin. And as a result, from 71 to the end of the 70s, there was no meeting of the heads of state. There could be no agreement because Nyerere could not be in the same space as this Mr. Idi Amin. So the collapse of the first East African formation was, among other things, not just because of ideology, but even personality.
The personalities. And of course, personalities play a big role even when that as it happened.
So much so that in 77, Tanzania closed its border with Kenya. In other words, these issues are not new, is really what I'm trying to say. But why have we not taken those lessons? In other words, you really cannot say you're moving together on a political front if Rwanda has 7 years for a presidency. The rest have 5. South Sudan is not thinking about elections.
They can't even know the next election.
No, they are not thinking about them. DRC, we know the challenges there. Kenya and Tanzania, they talk about 2 5-year terms. Uganda opened its own. Now, how can you talk about these same individuals or these same governments coming around the same concepts and embracing them wholeheartedly? Because if I embrace your 7-year thing, what will happen to my 5-year wouldn't that cause a constitutional crisis? So while we are not resolving those ones, Ndugu Irumba talked about the fact that we cannot move at the pace that we could have moved at if at the most basic level we are not moving together. That is the problem. We are yet to forge a unity of purpose and mind. It is a big problem.
Yeah, but also at the same time, like you have put it, I agree with you that sometimes if we don't have if we are not built on a common foundation, then there isn't much in common that we can share in terms of the final product. That seems not to be the problem of, we are talking about East Africa as such, but it seems to go beyond East Africa, and this is what we are seeing happening in the rest of Africa, that these discrepancies in terms of economic arrangements, in terms of political setouts, in terms of ideology has been a problem. And also the economic interests of varying. And I think from even as the unity, the East African community started, Kenya has been very elusive, by the way.
Not more than Tanzania. Tanzania is miles ahead in being elusive.
So you sometimes you find one dangling alone, and then what to do next? And of course, in the collapse, I think Uganda was the biggest loser, because most of the factories, the companies, the East African community companies and factories were in Nairobi more.
But I think even Ndugu Mututa, along those very lines, you are talking about Uganda being a loser, but even that in itself was a fundamental flaw in the East African arrangement, for the simple reason that the colonialists structured this thing in such a way that Kenya was supposed to be the factory of this place. For you were to provide raw materials, exactly. Tanzania, and now when the East African arrangement...
That's why the railway line was facing that.
Oh yeah. For you were just to do coffee, cotton,
for your
bananas. So, because remember that the capital of the colonial arrangement in this region was Kenya. So they really wanted to ensure that the engine of growth is where they sit.
Yeah.
And a time came when Tanzania and Kenya, and Tanzania and Uganda, were saying, look, this is not for me.
And by the way, they managed to convince this old man about the capitalistic ideology, that it was the best for the country. But even as we speak now, today we are having issues of land grabbing in Kenya. I think it was not grabbing per se, but the ownership. That you find the
biggest chunk of land is owned by a very
for
a very small clique of
family. It's actually a family, not even politicians. So that they are choosing.
Are politicians' families.
So you realize then it was.
And that was the colonial model.
Exactly, it was a colonial model.
And
but of course it helped.
Family, Uhuru family, Kenyatta family.
Yes.
Odinga family, and which are there are about 3 families. They almost own about 70% of Kenya's land.
And then, of course, they are the remnants of the colonial order.
Yeah, exactly.
Those ones are also there.
So that also, I think, impacted the relationship within the East African community, because then if maybe these people were moving at the same pace, they would have moved, and they would have, because by that time, for example, Uganda, we were competing with some of the Asian tigers. And I'm sure Kenya was also equally doing well. Tanzania was doing very well. But the invisible hand then comes in, because if that was allowed to continue, maybe East Africa today will be talking at a different level. If the East African community survived then, a lot would have happened. We'll now be having most of I think by then Uganda had a number of airline, of planes to fly within the region. But you realize that it is not only much as we blame the invisible hand from the West and the rest of the world. African leaders should also think of their people more than they think.
But you see,
very true.
But you see,
continue.
If I can
yes.
Sometimes I come to realize and forgive these African leaders. You know why? The template where they are ruling is not their template, and it's not their making. And even if you decided to fight it, your own people would actually turn against you, and these colonial masters would actually influence your own people, pay them like the opposition leaders in Africa, and they come and fight you off. So sometimes leaders come in power, they realize that what you need, it is the white man with it. You are not willing to support your own self, but you need a good service. That good service, the white man wants to give it to you, but at a cost. So you weigh. Let's say if you're in Uganda and you're not paying tax, but you want good infrastructure, and the politician after 5 years is going to be voted in or out on account of that infrastructure that you are demanding for, isn't it? Now, if you're not paying taxes to support it, there is a white man there who says, give me the oil in Hoima and I give you money. What you are interested in is the infrastructure. And if he does not give it to you, he'll lose your vote. The politician's interest is remaining in chair. So he'll give the oil to the white man to get the money and build what you want. So sometimes we ourselves are to blame because we are not willing to walk the talk and support. I have been in Pan-Africanism. This is a struggle for Africa. But I can tell you, Mr. Mututa, you are there. Nobody is willing to support you even with 50 shillings.
In fact,
nobody.
Talking about
but they want a free Africa.
Talking about that, we are now having many Pan-African chapters in Africa. But I think many of these Pan-African chapters are formed because someone is funding them to have money so that in form of that they will be able to mobilize. But behind that funding, you realize there's a plan. Then you ask people, what you are talking is different from what you are doing.
Yes.
If you are saying that we should move this side, then why are you getting this funding? Because even as we were looking at the models as these countries were being formed, especially Africa, people are saying, no, you are moving towards the east. These are moving towards the west. But where is Africa moving? Why should we move left and right? And why not move straight like one was saying? Can't we come up with a model that can help us as the people of Africa other than relying on other people's models? I think we have something to say before we go for
I think, Ndugu Mututa, you've been asking, you've done so variously. What is the role of African leaders in bettering their own causes? And we talked about how Kenya, by political design, had been made the industrial base of the entire region. But then, after the white man departed, day-to-day exertions in this particular area, we expected that African leaders would have moved to compensate the other regions in some fashion. So that if Kenya is the industrial hub, well, then make Tanzania maybe the insurance hub. Maybe make Uganda...
Let's share the responsibility.
Yes, maybe the aviation industry hub. But no, they continued... Oh, the sports hub.
Yeah.
So that I don't feel the fact that I don't have the industries. Kenya is not that far. I can always buy the bottled water from Kenya.
Exactly.
And export whatever else I have. But even that was not done. He was talking about the software. Our leaders have taken to using the colonial software to entrench themselves. That is our dilemma today. They are not even trying to redo the order. They are taking advantage of the ugliness to entrench themselves.
You know, sometimes you laugh. Back to your point. Last, I think 2 weeks now, the former president, Lungu, of Zambia, wanted to go to South Africa for medical checkup. And then the head of public service wrote, because he applied to be allowed to move out of Malawi, of Zambia, to go to South Africa.
At least that one applies.
For medical checkup. Now,
he applies, the president of...
No, it's the former president now.
He
has to
he
be
applies?
allowed. Yes, because the state which is supposed to cater. But now he gets a response from the head of
public service
saying, no, your request has been denied. And then the reason said, why? Because he doesn't understand why. Now that he's outside of power, he doesn't understand. Then
Why
people
should not have
understand.
fixed this one?
Yes. Then someone was reminding him, say, by the way, why should you go to South Africa? Why not here? Why can't you get your tests here? Why can't you get treated here? So what we are saying is that sometimes the system
Is bad.
is bad.
But
To
you
the-
make it worse.
To the extent that even you, when you are brought in it, you may not understand. We are talking about that some of these people, the presidents, when they enter these systems, they get locked up there and they become prisoners of the system. Sometimes when you stand out, when you say, look, say, hey, this thing was
They
was
become
not bad.
victims.
Exactly. So, but the most important thing here is, I think it calls for like now we're talking about Pan-Africanism. Can we have the Pan-African spirit to think more of the common good for Africa and our people, that we can be able to stand the temptation and the offers that we get from the rest of the world. Don't go away. We're coming back for a break to look at more issues that affect us, the people of Africa, they call it a black continent, on this beautiful continent of Africa. For coming back after this break shortly. Thank you.
Be very fast. I'm on air. I'm on air. Be
This Preno, as the name prescribes, is the project for restoration of livelihood in northern region. So it was designed to support the population in order to implement the national programs of wealth creation, improving household income, and this is done through supporting agriculture. And by supporting agriculture, you support seed production, training of farmers, mindset change, and even it went ahead to have components of food security grants, whereby families were given grants to be able to improve their food security. But there was also community-based natural resources grants, which were given to families to put in place woodlots, which would help them to reduce on killing the vegetation and deforestation, looking for energy or for firewood.
I got it.
What do you mean you got it? Have you won a lottery?
Yes, this is kind of like a lottery to me.
Let me see. But these are URA receipts now.
Yes, exactly my point. See, I had tax areas that had accumulated for a while now, and I was burdened by the penalties and the interest. But guess what? All I had to do was to pay my principal tax, and now I'm free.
What?
Yes.
How? I mean, it's impossible.
It is possible. The government has done it. Yes, the government has given a chance to all taxpayers to pay their outstanding principal tax that accrued until 30th of June with no interest or penalties.
But now they're really...
Imagine, yes! So yeah, all you have to do is simply pay your principal tax and enjoy the waiver on penalties and interest. And this goes up to the end of December 2023.
But how do I do that to also enjoy the waiver?
All you have to do is simply pay your principal tax to benefit from waiver on interests and penalties that runs till end of December 2023. Pay your outstanding principal tax using the available payment channels, or simply dial *285# or visit the nearest URA office for guidance before 31st December 2023. Remember, this chance comes only once.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
In this family, we can't agree on anything.
Martha.
We can't even agree on what to watch. All the games to play.
Martha.
Ndowoza Mulabi, we can't even agree on what to eat. At least the one thing for now we can all agree on is the soap to use. He likes that it's big and lasts long.
Anti-economy.
I like that it keeps my skin smooth. Ate alina echovu. And the children like that. It smells amazing. Everyone is happy. Movit soap comes in 4 fantastic flavors. Movit family soap is truly soap for the whole family.
Movit. All day confidence.
Water, please. Can I pay with Momo?
No.
Ha. Hey, can I pay with Momo? Ha.
Here's our merchant.
Oh, very good.
7 mega?
20. Can I pay with Momo?
Unfortunately, no.
Ha. Baby, let's go.
When paying with MTN Momo comes with more benefits for everyone, it just doesn't make sense not to have it.
Hello, I've come for rent.
Can I pay with Momo?
Yes, you can.
Pay or shop with MTN Momo and get cashback every week. It's free of charge. Use the Momo app or dial *165*3#. The Woman Trade Fair for this year brings you the Black Friday earlier than ever before. Get ready to buy what you need at a 50% discount. Home appliances like fridges, cookers, TVs and so much more. Boda bodas, tukutukus, soap, detergent, cooking oil, sugar, rice and so much more. Don't miss to get what you've been longing for at a discounted price of up to 50% at the Woman Trade Fair Black Friday from 3rd to 10th October. Proudly sponsored by Total Energy, Science, Technology and Innovation Secretariat, Stanbic Bank, Uganda Breweries Limited, Tembo Seals, Uganda Bati, Simba Automotives, and Node Group.
We are running the program of parish development model. That is a model, a strategy that is supposed to enhance wealth creation by engaging 39% of the population that is not into the money economy. So far as a district, we have 56 parish development circles and they have accessed funds. Last year we received about 560 million shillings, of which we have disbursed that money to them, and each beneficiary receives a maximum of 1 million shillings. Those PDM circles are into 56 parishes across the district, and so far they have no complaint about the disbursements and the receiving of the funds, which I think is a very positive note, because people have been talking about funds not being received elsewhere, but for Bushenyi, all those who have applied for the funds have received it, especially the revolving fund.
The 9th of October is a special day in Uganda. We remember our past, celebrate our present, and dream of a brighter future. It is a day to celebrate independence with pride and confidence. The 61st Independence Day celebrations under the theme, Sustaining a United and Progressive Nation, Taking Charge of Our Future as a Nation, will take place in Kitgum District on Monday, 9th October 2023.
Welcome back. After that break, we were having Pan-African Friday program coming your way from UBC here at Nile Avenue in the heart of Kampala. And the Pan-African Friday is a program where we discuss issues that concern us, the people of Africa, those who are living in Africa here and those who are living outside of Africa, as long as we will have the African heart, the African ideas, we welcome those ideas. By the time we went off the screen, we were talking about the leadership of Africa, that Africa has all these problems rather. Africa is a rich continent, so they say, and indeed it is. And Africa has all this potential. But when will this potential then become a reality? When we are still not able to actualize even the independence that we got. It is not, many people say, African got independence, but they don't have that independence. I can tell you, we got it and we have it. We may have issues here and there in doing the things that we do, but definitely African countries are independent now. What is left to do is that as African independent states, what needs to be done to benefit the people of Africa, but also to secure and cushion the leadership of Africa so that leaders will be able, after they retire, to be home and also to be liked by their people than having the issues that we have been having, like we're having coups now, coup after coup, and the leaders who we supported to come and we shouted our man, our woman, then we turn around them to abuse them like they were chicken thieves in the market. So where is the problem? And maybe part of the problem is the invisible hand we're talking about, that there's the template has been made. Now, you can change leaders, but if the systems have not changed, we are just creating leader after the leader, and we could even end up creating a worse leader from someone who was even better. But where is the problem? And we are looking at what is now happening in the west of Africa, the Sahel area, the French and the leadership in these countries. Because most of this, in this area, we have what they call the 5G, the countries of the French colonies that were formerly under the the French administration, and the coups that have happened in this area. And we will be discussing at length on what could be the problem, or what could be the remedy. Are the new leaders going to be different from those that they have deposed, or are they going to be even worse? Is there going to be a change in terms of leadership, or we are going to see the same things but over time changing? Is the invisible hand so kind, or so tolerant, or so patient to wait until the right time when it will strike? And to discuss all this, I will start with Rachel to give us her views on what do we expect from all these coups, and what do we see happening in the next future, in the nearby future, in the Sahel area of West Africa.
First of all, it has to be said that these kind of developments are not new. The only thing is that we are slow to learn our lessons. As Africans, we have not been very good at not just learning our lessons, but even doing whatever we need to do to actually move ourselves forward. These envoys, such as this French envoy who departed Niger on Wednesday, being thrown out of their the countries where they have gone to represent France, has been gathering pace. We know very well that at the beginning of this year, Burkina Faso also threw out the French ambassador. And before that, Mali also threw theirs out. Wherever there has been this change of leadership, which is underlining the fact that so-called democratic governments have not served the people of the Sahel, the French ambassadors have followed the African rulers into an exile. But I think the worst case of arrogance in terms of colonial leaders who don't wish to depart the African continent, the crown belongs to the French. These are people who entered defense agreements at the turn of the independence era. They said not just verbally, but also in written form, that they would guarantee the security of the newly independent states that they formerly administered. They forced themselves into to the forefront of the security arrangements of those countries. As a result, France in particular never departed militarily from these countries. They maintained bases there, they maintained personnel, they maintained a chokehold on arms supplies, they maintained a chokehold on governance issues. So they really never left. At least the British pretended to have left. At least the Portuguese pretended. France did not pretend. So for them, their version of colonialism was more intolerable than all of the rest combined. That is why at this time, the people of those countries believe that any partnership with any colonizer but the French, because their excesses are legendary. We said here before that they were the only colonizer who said the Sahel, and of course Northern Africa, is an extension of France. Can you imagine that kind of ridiculous? They said, no, those are overseas provinces. No, not territory. They said they are provinces of France. In other words, Niger was a province, Mali was a province, Guinea was a province, Burkina Faso was a province, Senegal was a province. Very ridiculous. Those excesses spilled over into a demand that these people pay for the colonial experience. They say, please, if we built you a road, pay. Did anybody invite them to Niger? I have to emphasize that the excesses are the reason why these people, it is as if they are now just getting the first taste of real independence. Because like we said, to say the white man left Niger and he all but is sitting at the helm of the defense ministry, he really did not leave.
Sure.
To say that this white man left, and he, to this day, your reserves are in Paris, and it is you to apply, you in Niger, you apply to a white man in Paris for money to build a hospital. I think we have to say that this
Subject
experience
to
was totally out of this world. There have been other cases where envoys have been thrown out. Nearer home, back in 2008, Rwanda threw out the German ambassador. They said this was in retaliation to, there is a head of protocol at that time. She was called, I think, Rose Kawiye or something like that. And she was stopped at an airport there in Germany, in Frankfurt to be exact. So these people said, oh, you have the audacity to stop our head of protocol. Please, ambassador, get out of here. In 2018, Rwanda did it again. They said this man has exceeded the diplomatic boundaries by commenting openly on the affairs of Rwanda. Please take him. I did not hear Germany saying we cannot leave. In fact, we will never leave. In fact, we don't know your authority. I'm talking about the impunity that French has exercised, is really what I'm trying to say. There have been many other cases. In 2018, DRC threw out the EU ambassador. They said, please, you've exceeded your diplomatic cover, go elsewhere. They said also it was in retaliation because officials of DRC had been sanctioned by the EU. But even in 2018, under the leadership of Magufuli, EU recalled its ambassador from Tanzania to reorient him to the environment in which he was, because he was now talking about things that no ambassador should be talking about.
Yeah.
Not in. The long and the short is that the French foundation of colonialism was excessive in every respect. It is no wonder that the people of Niger took it upon themselves to diligently wait outside the military base where those French people have refused to leave, saying for them they're not going anywhere because they believe now this is really their place. Also at the embassy.
To be there.
Yes, these people said, well, you may say that, that is your opinion, but please, we don't want you here. Unfortunately, Ndugu Mututa, even when France has recalled its man, and Macron has undertaken to remove the military men by the end of this year, the template is still there.
Yeah, because that's the other question I was coming to. Now that chasing away France on the opening day, and people are celebrating that at least the ambassador has left.
It is not enough. In fact, the white man, I have said before, God is most patient, Satan is next. The white man is third. They will outweigh these people. Macron has pretended to retreat. He has not. He's waiting patiently for another opportunity and another channel to re-inject himself more vigorously. He's pretending to be humble. He's not. He's pretending to have left. He was not. The Nigerians say every man has his price. So these white men are waiting to see what is the price of these new ones. Is it gold? Is it silver? Is it an endless seat, an endless occupation of the presidency? They are calculating the cost. But I assure you, unless that template is revisited, the French excesses are yet with the people of the Sahel.
Exactly.
They are alive and well. I said here before that unfortunately our leaders, not just here in East Africa, but elsewhere across the continent, take the excesses of the white man and use them to entrench themselves. After they see that the cost of redoing the system is entirely too high, including death, they say, let me enjoy what I can with my household. Cry as you may,
because
they will not change.
When you look at it, of course, the French, this particular one, this group of the military group, were invited.
Okay.
And the invite was that, look, the Africans, we have failed to put to the end the insurgency which is moving. Actually, you remember in Mali, they had taken the northern part, and they were threatening to reach the capital. And that's when the president calls them and says, look, you come and help us, because...
Do you think they were invited without a whisper? As in, we can help you, but they know why they can help you?
Of course, even in dreams, your dreams, the things that you know. You don't know how uncomfortable it is to dream that you are driving a car when you don't know how to drive. So that is why even those people, they could remember, we're discussing here about the deal which was brokered by some man. I think, which deal was that? There was a deal which was brokered by a business person, and it involved a number of countries. I think
it was DR Congo.
Yes, it was DRC. So the dealers
are with us.
The scavengers are all over the place. They know when to land. Now, if what we're talking today, 10 years later on, we would see the same people who have taken over power in this Sahel area behaving sometimes even worse than those that are found there, unless they realize the basic problems that their former leaders have been facing. Because these guys also came with a lot of these promises. Some of them got palatial places in Paris, and in
some own streets in Paris.
Exactly. Now, that temptation that you have been fished, because now they are dancing around with the people. But finally, when the reality settles and they look at themselves, their families, their welfare, their future, you see things starting to change.
I think even Ndugu Mututa, this reminds me of a very pertinent example of the fact that these our leaders are disempowered at best. They really cannot move things forward as things are. In 2021, Mali threw out the envoy of ECOWAS.
Yeah.
They realized that ECOWAS was no longer representing the interests of the African people. In fact, you remember how they were threatening around the clock to intervene in Niger and in Burkina Faso and in Mali and in Guinea. And the people said, wait a minute, who are you speaking for? If the people of Mali say the leadership we have is not serving us, has not served us these 60 years.
Who are you to impose it on us?
Who are you to say you will live there? You will keep these men. We know that Bazoum, who this Macron is always quoting, Bazoum, who was the ousted president of Niger, we know Bazoum was just a muppet. You know a muppet?
No, I don't.
It was worse than a puppet.
There are these string toys that are controlled by strings.
That's a very hard one. At least use puppet.
Well, so many of our leaders are Muppets. They are pulled, someone is in Washington controlling the leg, controlling the hand, controlling the head. So you see someone nodding, you think it is them. No, it is this string that is coming from Brussels.
Exactly, and that is why, you remember, and I think it was the President Museveni who was talking about it during the launch of the East African Community in the 20 years now ago, 20 also, that unless we see that there is a need for us to work together, because then the string pullers know that if African leaders worked together genuinely, it is going to be very hard and very difficult for them to influence, because then people will learn that we can do these things without your help. And an attack on one is an attack on all. But now in these small places, as people try to entrench themselves, they know they will go to, they will convince Kenya that Tanzania is not good, so we can deal with you, and we are not going to deal with Tanzania. And then for you think they are thinking, they are saying I'm good. They deal with you, and time comes when they will go to another person. They know now you are no longer useful. But if African leaders took it upon themselves that if we are taking the East African community to the next level, let's be together. If we are talking to the ECOWAS, let's work together. If we are talking to, as the East African, as Africa, let's work together and let's consolidate. That would have been hard. I mean, for people to be pulled strings like that. Now, minus that, everyone is vulnerable. It was your point.
Yes, my point is that it may appear that that influence is waning. To the eye, yes. But you see, because the white man is so tuned into self-interest, he's so tuned into self-preservation. If he's not there, if his boots are not on the ground today, he'll make sure he holds the banking system ransom. He'll make sure he holds the insurance system. He'll remain plugged in at any cost. So you can say all you want. Look at many of our economies. They are not in our own hands. We became independent, yes, on paper, 60 years ago. But even in this country, most of the manufacturers, they're of what extraction? They're Asians. They're Asians because, not because they're inherently superior, but because the systems from which they come provide better terms for capital, better terms of enabling investors to actually represent their home bases by being conduits by which, for example, some of these goods come to. I'll give you an example. One of the better ones is the pharmaceutical industry of India. It's a juggernaut on the world stage. They reproduce many of the goods that are patented by the West because they have, increased their production capacity to that level. So, in these our countries, an Indian will come today and say, I'm establishing a pharmaceutical firm. But he's really an extension of pharmaceutics in India. So, because for us, we don't own capital, we don't own intellectual patents, we don't own even our own unity and our own interests. So, the spaces are there for others to occupy. Nature cannot host a vacuum. We have vacuums.
You remind me of a Mumbwa.
A Mumbwa?
Yes.
How does it come in?
This man who was working in Uganda and was working with some Ugandans, so they got him. He came to know about a Mumbwa. And a Mumbwa, for those who are not Ugandans, is some, I think they do some drugs, some medicines mixed with clay, and they put it in there for many reasons and for many diseases. But this man, this Indian, when he was living in Mulago, went with this Mumbwa and went
with its herbal
yes,
healing tendencies.
Yes, and but patented it and has a patent for it, which is made in Uganda, but has a patent somewhere in India. So that's what you are saying, that there is a lot of even support systems that go with that.
They are elsewhere.
Exactly.
So you cannot say, as you said, someone was talking, we've talked here variously about dethroning the dollar. It will be at least a generation, maybe two. Because the global supporting mechanisms are all dollar-based. They all serve the dollar. It will take the yuan
yes,
and the ruble at least a generation, at least 40 to 50 years,
exactly,
to truly, because look at Britain. Britain was overthrown from being the head of the economic order in the world back at the end of World War II. But they are still a potent power today by latching onto the United States, their cousins. So what we are saying is that overthrowing the French-leaning president will not necessarily change the French situation in that place.
Neither can it change the economic situation of the people in those countries.
They still hold the keys. So for us, we are saying, oh, today there are no French troops. Yes. But what about French banks? What about French insurance? What about French arms? They still have you lock, stock, and barrel.
And unfortunately, most of the population, including the civil service, the training has been franchised.
The education system, they still have us.
So these are things that, and we are talking about, that cannot be dealt away with by a single country, a single person, but it needs a consolidated effort for the Africans to sit down and say enough is enough. Now, no single president is going to be able to do that. No single country is going to be able to do that unless we work together. Ndugu Irumba.
Thank you for remembering me.
No, not remembering you. But we are looking at the African side now.
Yeah, now, the French ambassador to Niger, Sylvain Ité, was actually given 48 hours to leave Niger. He refused to leave.
And I like stubborn people.
He refused to leave.
No, he has a strong
in their mind. You know why? One of the backups that he had is that, after all, France has troops in Niger. You know, France has a lot of troops in Niger on ground. So he had that backup. They would protect him.
Special forces, moreover.
Yes. In your own country. Do you know how many UN bases Africa hosts here now? The main one for East Africa is in Entebbe here, Uganda. So the American ambassador can refuse to leave Uganda. There's nothing you're going to do about it. And the rest of the East African countries will only be analyzing. They'll be analyzing. I think they are correct. I think they are wrong. That's what they will be doing. So now, finally, I think because due to the international pressure, and you know that humiliation, but also because they also target how they can best work with the junta, the sitting government now.
Exactly. You don't completely antagonize them.
Yeah, you know there are various ways. They accepted to leave. Even Macron said, even my troops are leaving. He has accepted to even withdraw his troops and the ambassador. But that's a tactical withdrawal. In a war, you should not think that you have won. No. Just like she has made it.
Because at the same time, you people may be also following it, that Macron is having issues back at home. You know how this lady, the Prime Minister of Italy, has been abusing him. So your greed, your whatever. So there is a lot that's also going on back home. And of course, you remember by the time Macron...
Actually, others are calling him a coward.
Exactly. And when by the time he won the election, it was a narrow one.
Yes.
But beyond that, he has also been having issues. In fact, this issue of Niger has also helped them to diffuse the pressure back at home. You know, demonstrations after demonstrations in Paris. Paris has also become another battleground. So maybe that's also helping him to divert, but also to that tactical withdrawal could also be mathematical.
So it's a tactical withdrawal that the junta in Niger should not look at and just some. No, like she said it very perfectly. I couldn't have said it better. These people, and they don't know where she got the categorization that God is the most patient, Satan next, and then the white man third. I don't know if she's
because
number
they've
one.
been doing evil things.
I don't know if she's number one.
But one said that the white man is black than white because the devil has never been white.
So here is my point. And you have seen what this president of Nigeria has been saying, Tinubu, with his ECOWAS. Also that, just that opinion would have also empowered the ambassador of France to Niger. Because that shows that you are not united. You are not at par. If we had one army in Africa, and that one army in Africa, the commander said, please leave, this man would leave in 48 hours. But now they know that, no, this is a small group of people. The rest of Africa, they also have other interests, including ECOWAS and Tinubu of Nigeria. And that's a powerhouse, that's Nigeria. So, it takes us back. Takali, is Africa willing to work together like other continents have done? The other day, I got a revelation. I didn't know that in the background, America is dealing very well with Russia, Mr. Mututa, in the Ukrainian war. America is in good books with Russia in terms of business from Ukraine. How much grain should we allow and give safe passage to America? You get it? How much gas should Russia supply America? They're still in business. So it shows you that this comedian, Velinsky, is simply not understanding what they call the geopolitics of the world, the global politics. He's been a comedian. By the time he wakes up to understand the real game, Ukraine will be as poor, not in...
Don't say as Uganda, because that is not going to be true. Because what also need to look at is that when France says it's withdrawing, well, you remember, let's look at withdrawing from what? In the first place, did we even need France to come and to settle the issues of the Sahel?
Of Niger, Sahel.
Who is funding the rebels? Who is funding these Islamists? And the premise, why they came in 2013, I think 2014, when that Burkina revolt was, their premise was that we are here to stop Islamists because they will be attacking Europe.
Why don't you wait for them from Europe?
Really?
Because that is where they are coming. Wait for them not to come.
That's why I said that even this, to say they were invited, it was after whisper. They took some leaders aside and said, look.
Apparently,
and in those conversations, there's always a cut.
Apparently, they arrived on the dot as and when they agreed.
These people.
So, they said, okay, we have come here to stop these Islamists coming down. If they take over Mali, then they will be attacking Europe and France and the rest of Europe.
They did not mention the uranium, did they?
Of course not.
Okay.
There was no gold.
Now, why don't you wait them at your gate?
But that not also withstanding, you also realize that in this G5, the countries that for this Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, and in Niger now, you realize that a lot of, now you are mentioning uranium, but also the other, in fact, my worry is, and of course the people of France have to be worried, that if this exodus of sending away ambassadors continue, French is going to have a problem. Because you talked about the banking. These 14 countries have been banking their money in France. Now that they are sending this, they are cutting these links, are they going to claim that money? Because they have,
at some point it will follow.
They have long-running contracts and agreements.
Because indeed, the Niger, when these new leaders, they said they have cut off the military arrangement that they had, where France is the guarantor of their security. Can you imagine that? So which means if you're the guarantor, which means you'll be supplying my uniforms?
Yes.
It means you'll be supplying the cars?
Yeah, you have seen them putting on a uniform similar to that of France.
Because if I guarantee you security, we know the way these Western entities work. Even if it's here, if it's an NGO comes and they're sinking wells, they'll set it up in such a way that the standards here agree with the standards of Europe.
So that spare parts will come the other side?
Not only that, whether you're talking about the working environment, they'll say, okay, we need so many air conditioners, we need so many...
And they're the suppliers.
Exactly.
So it follows that if they are the guarantor of those, these West African states, it follows that they dictate what cars the armies will drive. It shows how many promotions, because according to the structure in Paris.
And the guns.
So whether the cost of such an arrangement ruins your economy, that's on you. Because the uniforms come from Paris, the tires are from there, whatever it is just that bad, exploitative in the extreme. And so if you can, it can't be, we're revolving around the understanding that France can simply not walk away.
It's not walking away.
The economic interest is too high. It is impossible.
Yes, they are not walking away until Africa comes together and realize that they need to walk away.
And the French model in particular, where they micromanage everything concerning their colonial project, means that even the brooms, people in Paris benefit from these brooms supplied to such an army.
Yes.
So, for you to say that the $1 billion that were accruing to Paris on account of the engagement with Niger
have now forced,
will now be just let go. Nobody does that one.
But because even at that, these people still have a lot of their money in the French bank.
That's what I'm saying. They can't walk away. Because you've been subsidizing the French economy for at least 60 years,
yes.
at least.
Yeah.
So nobody walks from such a gainful venture because you said they should go.
No.
No. You need to wake up.
And you nobody that you have won.
Nobody.
You can't. You are not
because
winning.
The gains are too much.
Yeah,
the industry, all the parts come from Paris. The medical system, I'm talking about the French model. It was extreme in exploitation. All the laboratories, I'm sure in Niger, all the equipment comes from Paris. So for you to say, Niger, what they were getting a year is 1 billion. Guinea, it was 1 billion. I'm talking about dollars. Burkina Faso, 1 billion. Guinea, 1 billion. Now you want them to leave all these billions that are free. No, it can't happen.
Ndugu Irumba, when do we see the African Union where in this?
The other day, I had a discussion over the common language of Africa. And somebody revealed to me that UNESCO is the one funding the launch of the Kiswahili as an official language.
I think it's best in Paris there, UNESCO.
Yes, yes, of course. Now, Comrade Mututa, just imagine
Africa is doing
that even the common language for Africa,
for you
to have a common language,
for you to be able to speak to me, someone Paris, has to come from somewhere to teach you how to speak to me.
They're even going to sponsor you to learn it, to put it on your curricula in the schools.
Or to love it.
To love it. They're going to give you money to advertise it. They're going to give funds to schools to put them in their curricula, to let the children study UNESCO.
I believe...
Not African Union. African Union is also going to be a recipient of that money.
Some of these trainers, aren't they doing Swahili in Paris? You know, sometimes it gets that ridiculous. Where the trainers are even trained in Paris. Exactly. Yet Kiswahili is...
It's here! It is here. So, do you need to sponsor me to learn my language? So, do you know why they're doing it? They want to manage you. So they're going to own it. Someone is going to have a patent for Kiswahili in Paris. If you want to do anything, on Kiswahili, let's say you now want to modify some words, you have to seek for permission from Paris. Do you know all these historical sites, tourism sites like Kasubi Tombs? For you to do refurbishment, you have to first seek for permission from Paris because it's a UNESCO
heritage site.
Yes. I was fighting in Toro. We have created an event every year to revitalize our Toro culture. And there is a member of UNESCO in Toro. He was telling us we must seek permission from UNESCO. I was almost kicking him in the back. That me, celebrate my cultures in Toro, I must ask for permission from this representative of UNESCO in Toro. He's called Mr. Wagweli Stephen. Can you imagine? That's how stupid we have become. So the Kiswahili is going to be launched as an official language in Africa, but being headquartered in Paris. The same people you have said have left Niger voluntarily.
They have come back.
How stupid can we be? No, they are not. They are going to remove this uniform, the military uniform. They come back in civilian wear. They can even come back in your skin. In your skin.
Yes,
they've done that.
Remember, they had this mode of naturalizing Africans.
Exactly. Yeah.
In fact, some of their ambassadors are Africans.
The one we had here before this one.
Yes, they have done
It's
that.
an African from Ghana.
We are not even talking about black Frenchmen. We are talking about people who were born here.
Yes.
They went and redid them in Paris, especially mentally and psychologically. And then they brought them back to represent their interests among you.
So that you don't complain. When you come and say, hey, but this is your brother. He's born from Fort Porto here. Hirumba is born from Fort Porto.
Yeah.
But the mindset has been switched to serve the interests of Paris, not yours. And in fact, it will be best place to come and argue a point here that supports them. Because you will be seeing like, no, I think it's okay. Since it's the brother, it's their own brother defending the argument.
Exactly.
So my brother, when you say
the African Union.
Yes, African Union. No, and Mr. Gama would have been here because they want always to hear him. He normally defends AU, African Union. We are moving. Where are you moving? You are moving 3 steps in front, 10 backwards.
But where is the problem?
The problem is us, the mindset.
So then it is not even the African...
Kwame Nkrumah, we celebrated his day the other last week. One of his biggest arguments in the conference was that we must leave this conference when we have one country called Africa. These cowboys said, no, let it be gradual. Let us start slowly. If you take it wholesome, it's going to be a big burden. So let's have first, since the colonial master has already divided us, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Sudan, what? Let's first operate like that. As we see, my friend, 60 years later, we are still seeing. That's what we are doing.
Yeah, because we are still gradual.
Why? Because these politicians have used these boundaries to entrench and enrich themselves. And so you cannot remove them now.
So
this is true across Africa.
What happens if the borders were... Because yesterday when we were discussing with these East African ambassadors about the integration, one of the issues that came up was the issue of these borders. The irony that people cannot freely talk to one another, let alone language, but even across borders, that you have to have permission if you are to cross from one area to the other. And people are asking, why the fear? Why do I fear that if you cross from your area, from your country to my country, you are a problem? I mean, if you are a problem, we are a problem anyway. But why can't we wait until that problem? We follow that we stop that problem. But again, what comes out is that, like she said, some of our leaders may not even be the ones responsible for that. Someone is watching from someone just pointing, say you. And or someone raised an issue, which I also spoke about it here one time. Why would Kenya go and look for food from somewhere else? Actually, it was even they were looking for these other GMO foods. When
genetically modified
yes, when
organisms.
in the region here, there is enough
We have
food.
organic food.
Even if you refuse to get from Uganda, you still could get from Tanzania. So this shows you that this overriding interests of the people who we assume left a long time ago have never.
No, they are here because the system is here.
Ndugu Mututa, one of the surest marks that there is no willingness to reach the Nkrumah level of mental, psychological, and other forms of unity is the dedication to non-tariff barriers.
Yes.
Whenever there is no political will to merge the interests of the people into one super destiny, the first fallback position is called non-tariff barriers. Because you see, non-tariff barriers buy time. By the time you table this situation, take it to, I don't know, the East African, I don't know what, to see who is letting 2 trucks from this way and 3 trucks from this way. And
what are they carrying?
These
What
are
is the
slow
standard?
mechanisms.
What is the standard and so on?
Whereas that will keep that particular political leader from ceding any power. Non-tariff barriers are an excuse for political unwillingness to cede any ground. They are more palatable. That is why things that could be resolved in a day take 1 year. Because I have a constituency. We're talking about national interests overtaking continental interests. If today I should say, okay, because I can source copper from Uganda, which is cheaper, and leave my own background with copper miners where it's much more expensive. This political constituency will not look kindly upon me in days to come. So you will create all kinds of artificial reasons why the Ugandan importation of copper from Uganda is untenable. You will say it is not of the right quality. You will say many untrue things. That will buy you time. And when that electoral cycle is done, we're exactly where we began. We are not progressing on the issue of political unity. That same dynamic is repeated across the region and across the continent. We have political leaders who fully appreciate, and I've said that countless times, the cost of establishing an African superstate is extremely high, including death. These colonizers have proven that they are not shy about ending the life of anybody who has Africa at heart. Now, whoever gets to any state house goes there with wonderful ideals, only to discover what the other folks are willing to do to preserve their interests. Now, after someone has sat there for a while, they digest this and say, let me just occupy this place, me and my family, until kingdom come. Because the cost of changing this, my country, calls for a blood sacrifice, which is my own.
But at the same time, while that happens, you realize that, and you know, sometimes people say the government has been compromised, and in Uganda, we normally hear people say, don't continue, opposition have been saying this, don't continue giving, they don't even say Uganda, don't continue giving Museveni money because then he will continue oppressing us. But you realize that who is funding them
It's a good question.
Because these people, opposition, I'm not talking about Uganda only, count any of them, including the Malemas in South Africa. The other time you had the issues in Ghana. So these people are very sharp. They will tell who this child will be at birth, and they will start grooming that child from day one.
I think also, Ndugumututa, on the question of the French influence across Africa, and especially the Sahel. When Niger and those other countries invited the United Nations to leave their region because they are not making any progress concerning stopping the Islamists.
Have they made any progress anywhere?
Yes, I believe Niger or Mali, one of those, has secured a guarantee that they will be gone within a specified period.
You remember one of the biggest recent disappointments was with the Myanmar, when this Sochu, the famous lady, peace fighter,
okay,
people began killing themselves, and you could see the UN team is also there, the peacekeepers are there, and people are dying, people are running away, people.
What I wanted,
I mean, we have seen this from Congo, sincerely.
The point I wanted to make on that UN thing was that the UN organization, they said, of the peace missions they've had in recent times, that has been the most costly in human lives, that they've lost 187 fighters in 10 years. We are saying, if these people are willing to shed their blood to safeguard their interests, unless you're willing to shed blood to safeguard yours, you cannot move them.
Thank you so much, people. It has been a very interesting discussion today, and next week we'll continue with the progress so far secured, made with the East African community, how far we have gone from the time it started. And we'll be having, I think, if all go well, the Minister of Uganda responsible for the East African community, who will be discussing the progress, or some people from the East African community here in Kampala. So far has been so good being with you this good morning, and on behalf of my fellow panelists, we thank you for your time being with us, and we ask you continue being with us, follow us, because when you go to YouTube now, you can have some of the episodes that you have already had in the past. You can look at them, and also send us the messages. You can get back to us through our inboxes, and we can always get back to you with that information. Today we are not able to have the messages that we have received, but we shall continue doing that next time, as we may promise. We wish you the best, and continue watching UBC. More programs are coming up. A nice weekend for you. Until we meet again next week, have a nice, lovely weekend. Thank you.